Okay, so I've been thinking about this whole Jason Morgan exit strategy on General Hospital, and the way the Pier 55 shooting played out is just, it's a lot to process. Like, basically, we all knew Steve Burton was leaving for a bit. He made that Instagram post back in February, and he talked on his podcast about taking a short break to spend time with his new wife, Michelle Lundstrom Burton, and their family. Which, makes total sense. But the way the show actually wrote him out during the Wednesday, March 25 episode, I am still trying to wrap my head around the sheer mechanical complexity of it. It's weird. Like, really weird. The whole thing is just weird. I mean, they had to find a way to get Jason off the canvas that felt authentic to his character, but also left the door wide open for his return this summer. And having him take the fall for a teenager who shot a corrupt WSB director? I guess that's peak Jason Morgan. But then again, that doesn't explain why the WSB was so quick to just swoop in and extradite him without a proper local investigation. Or maybe it does? I don't know. Wait, let me back up. Actually, no. First, I should mention the entire setup with Britt Westbourne and Jen Sidwell, because none of this Pier 55 chaos makes sense without understanding the Windermere safe situation. So, Britt and Jason had been planning this getaway to Canada for weeks. The whole idea was to get Britt out from under the thumbs of Sidwell and Ross Cullum, who were literally coercing her to research Cesar Faison's cold fusion final project. It's a classic hostage science trope, but kind of. Anyway, Marco Rios Sidwell's son actually manages to score Britt's Huntington's disease meds from the safe at Windermere. I think it was Friday, March 20? Or maybe earlier in that week? Somewhere around there. Marco gets the vials, which is supposed to be the key to Britt's freedom so Lucas Jones can reverse engineer them, but Cullum is dangerously observant. He catches on to Marco's betrayal. And this is where the show just went incredibly dark. Cullum tracks Marco down to the offices of Miller and Davis, and he just unalives the lawyer right there, stabs him to death. It's brutal, and Cullum meticulously frames Sonny Corinthos for it, which is a whole other tangent I could go down, but I need to focus on Jason. What was I saying? Oh right, Cullum. So, after murdering Marco, Cullum doesn't just flee. He tracks Britt down to Pier 55. This is where Britt was supposed to meet Jason for their grand escape. Cullum demands the vials back. Britt, obviously terrified but also desperate, refuses or tries to fight back, and they get into this massive physical altercation. Cullum knocks her out, her head hits a storage box, and she is just out cold on the pier. And right at that exact moment, Jason arrives. The timing is almost too perfect, which is a soap staple. I mean, not exactly, but kind of. Jason sees Britt unconscious, sees Cullum with a gun, and just goes into full stone cold mode. They start battling it out. Jason manages to knock the gun out of Cullum's hand, which is great, but Cullum is resourceful. He grabs an iron rod. He's literally about to strike Jason in the head with this heavy piece of metal, and it genuinely looks like Jason might be the one who ends up in a coma or worse. But here's what's bugging me. Rocco Falconeri. Rocco had been lingering behind a wall during this entire thing. Why was Rocco even there? He had been following Britt, trying to figure out what kind of trouble she was in, because he views her as this surrogate mother figure. It's a really complex psychological dynamic, honestly. So Rocco is watching this massive, violent struggle between a mob enforcer and a WSB director, and when Cullum drops the gun, Rocco sees his chance. He grabs the weapon and shoots Cullum in the back. A teenager shooting a federal agent in the back. I mean, he did it to save Jason's life, but the psychological trauma of that is going to be massive. I was analyzing Rocco's face in that scene, and you could just see his entire childhood evaporating in a split second. But then again, maybe he was just acting on pure adrenaline. Okay, wait, let me back up again, because the immediate aftermath is where the real narrative gymnastics happen. Nathan West arrives at the pier. Nathan is a cop. He takes one look at the scene. Cullum bleeding out on the ground, Britt unconscious, Rocco holding a gun, and Jason standing there. And in what feels like a microsecond, Nathan and Jason have this unspoken communication. Only a mere glance was needed. Nathan deduces that Jason is going to take the fall for Cullum's shooting. Why? To avoid any repercussions that could land on Rocco's plate for shooting a WSB spy. Because if the WSB finds out Dante Falconeri's kid shot their director, Rocco's life is over. he'd be locked away in some dark site forever. So Jason, being the ultimate sacrificial protector, just silently agrees to absorb the entirety of the blame. It's a beautiful character moment, but it's also incredibly frustrating because it derails the entire Canada escape plot. So Nathan orchestrates this massive cover-up on the fly. He takes Rocco to his mom, Lulu Spencer's home. Lulu is obviously an emotional wreck when Rocco confesses what went down. I mean, her teenage son just shot a man. Nathan swears Lulu and Rocco to absolute silence. "If you do exactly as I ask, no one will ever have to know," he says. It's a huge risk for Nathan, a sworn police officer, to cover up the shooting of a federal agent, but he's doing it to protect his friend's kid. Meanwhile, Jason is hauled to the PCPD by Dante Falconeri. The irony here is just suffocating. Dante is aggressively grilling Jason, completely unaware that Jason is literally throwing his own life away to protect Dante's son. I was watching Dante in that interrogation room, and he's so angry, so self-righteous about the law, and he has absolutely no clue that the real shooter is sitting in his ex-wife's living room. It's brilliant dramatic irony, but it also makes Dante look a little oblivious? Or maybe not, I don't know. Dante is just doing his job. Anyway, the point is... Wait, what was the point? Right, the extradition. So Dante is grilling Jason, and then Jack, Brennan, and some other WSB agents just storm the station. They claim they are extraditing Jason to an unknown location where he will await trial for Cullum's shooting. No local trial, no PCPD jurisdiction. Just straight into the black hole of the WSB. Brennan is looking at Jason, and there's this heavy implication that Jason is being sent to Steinmeier or somewhere worse. During another scene, Brennan is talking to Carly, or wait, no, it was Valentine, talking to Carly in her attic. Valentine mentions that Jason would probably never be seen by his loved ones again. The WSB doesn't play around when one of their directors gets shot. Even a dirty director like Cullum, the bureaucracy protects its own. This brings me to the emotional climax of the Wednesday, March 25 episode. Jason is loaded into this WSB transport van. It's dark. It's raining, or at least it felt like it should be raining. Maybe it wasn't, I can't remember perfectly. But Danny Morgan is there. Danny had been driven to Carly's house by Charlotte Cassadine, freaking out about his dad being in danger. And now Danny is standing there crying, watching his father being driven away in a heavily armored van, thinking he might never see him again. The emotional weight of that scene was staggering. Steve Burton played Jason's stoic acceptance so perfectly, just staring out the window, knowing he did the right thing for Rocco, even if it destroys his own son's heart in the short term. It's a classic Jason Morgan sacrifice. But we all know Steve Burton is coming back in July. He said it himself, so viewers shouldn't worry too much about Jason's ultimate fate. The real question is how the show is going to construct his exoneration. Because right now, things look completely hopeless for Jason. He's locked in a WSB transport heading to a secret prison, accused of attempting to murder a high-ranking intelligence officer. How do you walk back from that? Well, the show is already laying the groundwork for the rescue missions, and there are basically two distinct packs forming. First, you have Valentine Cassadine and Carly. Valentine is hiding out in Carly's attic, which is a hilarious dynamic in itself, but he agrees to help Carly prove Cullum's double agent status to help exonerate Jason. Valentine has deep, powerful connections in Switzerland and the international intelligence community. He tells Carly that since Jason matters to her, he matters to him too. It's a very calculated, romantic manipulation, but it's also practical. Valentine is probably the only person with the resources to hack into the WSB's mainframe or find Pascal or whatever proof is needed to show that Cullum was running a rogue cold fusion operation with Jen Sidwell. Then, on the other side of town, you have Jocelyn, Jax, and Britt Westbourne. Jocelyn finds out that the Canada escape plot went wrong and that Jason was extradited. She realizes that Cullum is incredibly dangerous, and if he wakes up, because remember, Cullum survived the shooting, which is a whole other insane plot point I'll get to in a second, he's going to be a massive threat. So Jocelyn essentially pitches a pact to Britt. They need to trust each other, because they both trusted Jason, and they have to work together to bring Cullum down. It's what Jason would want. I love this team up because Jocelyn and Britt have such different energies. Jocelyn is all fiery, impulsive righteousness, and Britt is this frantic, highly intelligent doctor who is currently melting down because her Huntington's meds were smashed by Cullum on the pier. They are a chaotic duo, but they might actually be able to uncover the medical or scientific proof of Cullum's illegal activities. Okay, wait, I need to talk about Cullum surviving. Because this is the most twisted, ironic part of the entire week. Cullum gets shot in the back by Rocco. He is rushed to General Hospital Trauma 1, and who is the attending trauma surgeon? Lucas Jones. Lucas, who is currently grieving because he just found out his boyfriend, Marco Rios, was brutally stabbed to death, and Lucas is standing there in the OR, blood dripping on the floor, working frantically on Cullum. Cullum flatlines. The team is ready to call it, but Lucas refuses to let him die. "He's not dying on our watch," Lucas says. He brings Cullum back from the brink. Lucas uses all of his medical skill to save this man's life. And Lucas has absolutely no idea that the man bleeding out on his operating table is the exact same man who drove a knife into Marco's chest just hours earlier. The dramatic irony is so thick you could cut it with a scalpel. When Lucas finally finds out the truth that he saved his boyfriend's murderer, the psychological fallout is going to be devastating. I am analyzing Lucas's motivations, and it's just pure, blind adherence to the Hippocratic Oath, completely divorced from the reality of the monster he is saving. Probably doesn't matter, but I noticed that Jack Brennan seemed almost relieved when the WSB agents took Jason. Like, Brennan knows Cullum is dirty. Brennan had that confrontation with Cullum at the field office, where he said he was starting to wonder if he should believe him at all. So maybe Brennan is secretly orchestrating Jason's transport to a safe facility? Or maybe not. I don't know. Brennan is such a wild card. If Brennan is actually protecting Jason from Cullum's loyalists within the WSB, that would explain why the extradition happened so fast. It gets Jason out of Port Charles and away from Sidwell's reach. But then again, that doesn't explain why Brennan would let Danny cry on the street like that. Okay, I know I just said the opposite, but hear me out. What if Jason isn't even in that van? What if the WSB agents were actually Sonny's men in disguise? No, that's stupid. Dante would have recognized them. It was definitely a real WSB extradition. The narrative needs Jason to be in a high-security federal situation so that Valentine and Carly's international hacking plot has actual stakes. If Jason was just hiding in a local warehouse, it wouldn't be dramatic enough for a 3-month hiatus. Anyway, the overarching theme here is sacrifice. Jason sacrificing his freedom for Rocco, Marco sacrificing his life to get Britt the meds, Lucas sacrificing his emotional well-being to save a patient. It's all very Shakespearean, but messy. The writers have woven this incredibly dense web of overlapping motivations. You have Sidwell vowing revenge on Sonny for Marco's death, completely unaware that his own partner, Cullum, is the real killer. You have Dante hunting for the truth, unaware his son is the shooter. You have Lulu and Nathan carrying this massive, illegal secret. And sitting in the middle of it all is Jason Morgan, quietly taking the punishment for everyone else's sins, riding off into the dark in a WSB van. It's going to be a long wait until July to see how this all unravels. Will Valentine find the Swiss bank accounts linking Cullum to Sidwell? Will Jocelyn and Britt find the prototype blueprints? Will Rocco crack under the guilt and confess to Dante, rendering Jason's sacrifice pointless? The permutations are endless, and I am definitely going to be losing sleep trying to map out every single possible outcome. But for now, Steve Burton is off the canvas, Jason is in federal purgatory, and Port Charles is left to deal with the incredibly messy, violent fallout of Pier 55. I just hope Britt can get her meds reverse engineered before her symptoms start showing up again, because that would just be tragic, like really tragic. Anyway, I think I've analyzed this from every possible angle, but I'll probably wake up tomorrow and realize I missed something completely obvious about Jack Brennan's tie clip or something.